The morning after the fire, Tom woke up in his small apartment. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, illuminating the modest room. He stretched slowly, feeling every ache from the previous day's rescue. His body was sore, and he could still taste the smoke on his lips. But despite the discomfort, he felt a quiet pride. He had done what few people could. He had saved lives, and the town knew it. Tom's phone rang. It was his mother. "Tom, did you see the news?" she asked, her voice full of excitement. Tom frowned slightly. He had not checked his phone yet. "No, Mom, what happened?" he replied, still tired. "You need to see this. Everyone is talking about you." "They are calling you a hero," she said, almost breathless. Tom rubbed his eyes and picked up the phone, opening the news app. Videos of the fire from yesterday played, showing the flames, the firefighters at work, and him helping employees in carrying the child. He paused when he saw himself on screen, exhausted but determined, guiding people to safety. His heart skipped a beat. The media had captured everything. The local news station had covered the story in detail. Reporters highlighted the courage of a fireman who risked his life to save others, despite having little in his own life. The video showed him collapsing from exhaustion after rescuing Mr. Benson and others. The footage was heartfelt and inspiring. Tom could see the comments from viewers. People were praising his bravery, his humility, and his selflessness. Many had shared the story on social media, making it viral within hours. Tom leaned back in his chair, feeling overwhelmed. He had never sought attention or recognition. His work had always been about helping people, not being praised. But seeing the appreciation of so many people gave him a warm feeling. For the first time in a long while, he realized that his courage and effort had touched more lives than he had imagined. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. It was Alan, the young fireman who had assisted him during the rescue. He smiled as he stepped inside. "I thought I should come by and see how you are doing," he said. Tom returned a small smile. "I am sore, but I'm okay," he replied. Alan handed him a bottle of water and a sandwich. "You need to eat. You did so much yesterday, and everyone is talking about it. The whole town is proud of you," he said. Tom shook his head modestly. "I just did my job." "Anyone would have done the same," he said quietly. Alan laughed softly. "Not everyone has your heart, Tom. You went above and beyond." People noticed that. Even Mr. Benson noticed it. Later that morning, Tom received a surprising call. It was from Mr. Benson himself. "Tom, I want to meet you," he said warmly. "I owe you more than I can say. I want to thank you in person and talk about how we can support you." Tom was surprised. He had not expected anything beyond the rescue itself. I will come," he replied, still feeling a little shy about the attention. At the company's office, Mr. Benson greeted him warmly. He led Tom into a quiet room where cameras had been set up for an interview. "I want the world to know about your bravery, Tom," Mr. Benson said sincerely. "What you did yesterday was extraordinary. I cannot imagine where I would be if you had not saved me." Tom shook his head, feeling uncomfortable with so much praise. "I was just doing my job," he said softly. Mr. Benson smiled. "And that is exactly why it matters so much. Courage and humility together are rare. People need to see that. I want to help you, Tom. I want to make sure your family and you are cared for." The cameras began rolling as Mr. Benson spoke to the media, sharing the story of Tom's heroism. Reporters asked Tom questions, and he answered honestly, explaining how he had only focused on saving people. His sincerity and humility shone through. The reporters captured the moment carefully, showing the exhaustion on his face, the kindness in his eyes, and the bravery in every movement he had made the previous day. When the segment aired on local news and social media, it spread quickly. Comments poured in from people inspired by his courage. Strangers praised him for risking his life, for helping the child, and for guiding everyone safely. Many said that the world needed more people like Tom. The story went beyond the town, reaching nearby cities and communities. People started sharing the video widely, calling Tom a true hero. Tom returned home later that afternoon, still amazed by the attention. His mother had prepared a simple meal, and they ate together quietly. "I am proud of you, Tom," she said softly. "You have always had a kind heart. Now the whole world can see it too." Tom smiled, feeling a deep sense of warmth. He had never cared about fame, but he realized that the recognition was more than just attention. It was respect for the courage and kindness he had shown. The next day, Tom's story continued to spread. The fire station received messages of appreciation from across the town. Local businesses sent gifts and letters of thanks. Children from nearby schools created posters with words like, "Thank you, Tom," and "Our hero." Tom felt touched by the gestures. Even though he had never sought praise, he understood that the impact of his actions went far beyond the fire itself. Mr. Benson also made good on his promise. He personally visited Tom, bringing resources to help him and his family. He offered financial support, medical checkups, and assistance with daily needs. Tom was grateful but remained humble. "I did not do this for anything in return," he said. "I only wanted to help people." Mr. Benson nodded. "And that is why it is so remarkable," he replied. As the week went on, Tom realized that the attention brought more than gifts or support. It brought hope and inspiration to people around him. Children talked about the brave fireman who helped others, and adults admired the courage and selflessness he had shown. People began to understand that even someone with very little could make a huge difference in the lives of others. The media continued to follow Tom's story. News articles and videos highlighted his dedication, his humble lifestyle, and the fact that he had not sought any personal gain. This made his story even more powerful. People were inspired not only by his bravery but also by his humility. Schools invited him to speak about courage and helping others. Community centers reached out, asking him to participate in events that encouraged kindness and service. Through it all, Tom remained the same person he had always been. He continued to work at the fire station, helping his team and guiding new firefighters. He never let the fame change him, but the recognition gave him confidence, a reminder that his efforts mattered, and that kindness and courage could touch lives in ways he had never imagined. One evening, after a long day of interviews and community visits, Tom sat quietly in his apartment. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the room. He thought about the fire, about the people he had helped, and about the attention he had received. He realized that one act of courage had created ripples far beyond what he could see. He smiled, feeling peaceful. The exhaustion from the fire was still there, but it was accompanied by a quiet joy and satisfaction. Tom knew that the recognition was not the most important part. What mattered most was the lives he had saved, the gratitude in their eyes, and the knowledge that he had acted with courage when it was needed most. The attention from the media, the community, and even Mr. Benson was a gift, but the true reward was the difference he had made in the lives of others. And so, as the lights of the city began to glow in the evening, Tom prepared for another day at the fire station. He had faced danger, he had been tested, and he had helped people in need. The world had noticed, but Tom knew that the real achievement was always quiet, humble, and powerful. It was the courage to act, the kindness to care, and the heart to keep going even when life was difficult. Tom lived in a small town where everyone knew each other. He was a fireman, and even though his job was difficult and sometimes dangerous, he loved it. He loved helping people. He had a kind heart, and his friends always said that he was brave in the quiet way that mattered the most. Despite his courage, life was not easy for Tom. He was broke. His apartment was tiny, and the rent often took almost all of his monthly salary. He did his best to save money for groceries, but many days he had to make simple meals because he could not afford anything more. His old clothes had patches and his shoes were worn out. Still, he never complained. He believed that helping people was more important than wealth. One morning, the sun rose slowly, spreading golden light over the town. Tom was already awake. He got ready for work, eating a small breakfast of bread and tea. He kissed his mother on the cheek. She had lived with him since his father had passed away, and she always worried about him. "Be careful today, Tom," she said softly. "I know you will help people, but promise me you will stay safe too." Tom smiled and nodded. "I will, Mom, I always do." The fire station was a few blocks away from Tom's apartment. When he arrived, his colleagues were already preparing the fire trucks for the day. The station was noisy, with the sound of sirens being tested, the clatter of boots on the floor, and the voices of the firemen laughing and joking. Despite the seriousness of their work, the team always tried to keep their spirits high. Tom joined them, checking his equipment carefully. The gear was old but well maintained. Each helmet, each jacket, each hose had a purpose. They had trained for moments like this every day, but the reality was always more challenging. Suddenly, The loud alarm rang across the station. It was urgent. A voice over the loudspeaker said that there was a fire in a high-rise building downtown. The building housed offices for many companies. Some of the employees were trapped inside, and the fire was spreading fast. Tom felt his heart beat faster. He grabbed his helmet and jacket and ran to the fire truck. His team followed quickly, and together they drove toward the smoke that was already rising above the city. As the fire truck arrived, a crowd had gathered outside the building. People were pointing at the windows, where flames and smoke were visible. The heat from the fire was intense, and the smell of burning wood and plastic filled the air. Tom quickly jumped out of the truck and surveyed the scene. There were employees on the sidewalk, coughing and scared. Some were crying. Others were helping each other down the stairs. Tom's heart sank. He knew that time was critical. Every second counted. A security guard ran up to him. "Top floor. The CEO is still inside." "He went back to get some papers," the guard said nervously. Tom did not hesitate. He understood the danger, but he knew that he had to try. He looked at his fellow firemen, and they nodded. Together, they prepared to enter the building. The smoke was thick as Tom climbed the stairs. Every breath was heavy, and his clothes were hot against his skin. Flames danced around the hallways, and the sound of the fire crackling echoed through the building. Employees had left personal items behind, and some desks were already damaged. Tom tried to focus. He repeated in his mind, "Stay calm. Find everyone. Help everyone." He found a group of employees huddled in one corner, coughing and covering their faces. "Follow me," Tom said firmly but kindly. He guided them toward the emergency exit, checking every corner to make sure no one was left behind. Some employees were scared and hesitant, but Tom's calm voice gave them courage. They followed him down the stairs slowly, carefully avoiding falling debris and the smoke that filled the hallway. Once he made sure the group was safe outside, Tom ran back upstairs. He could feel the sweat dripping from his face, and his muscles ached from the effort. He knew someone else was waiting. The security guard had mentioned the CEO. Tom climbed faster, ignoring the burning in his lungs. He thought about the people outside waiting for news, about the families who could lose someone, about the lives he might save if he acted quickly. Finally, on the top floor, Tom found Mr. Benson, the CEO. He was coughing and weak, sitting near his desk with papers scattered around him. Tom handed him an oxygen mask that he carried with him and helped him stand. "We have to go now. Can you walk?" Tom asked. Mr. Benson nodded but looked frightened. Tom took one of his arms to support him and led the way toward the stairs. As they moved, part of the ceiling fell near them, but Tom was quick. He pushed Mr. Benson forward, shielding him with his own body. Every step was careful, every movement precise. He could hear the fire crackling behind them, and the shouts of his colleagues as they worked to control the flames. The fire was unpredictable, but Tom refused to give up. His mind was focused on one thing only: getting Mr. Benson to safety. By the time they reached the stairwell, Tom was exhausted, but he kept moving. He guided Mr. Benson down each step, ensuring he did not trip or fall. Smoke filled the stairwell, making it hard to breathe, but they kept going. Other firefighters joined them on the way down, helping clear debris and giving support where needed. Tom felt a sense of relief as he saw the sunlight from the exit. They were almost there. When they finally reached the street, the crowd outside gasped in relief. People clapped and cheered as Tom helped Mr. Benson sit down safely. Paramedics rushed over to check on both of them. Mr. Benson was shaken but unharmed, and Tom felt the exhaustion hit him like a wave. His legs trembled and his vision blurred. The cameras from news crews captured everything: the bravery, the struggle, and the determination of the fireman who risked his life for another. Even as he leaned against a fire truck, catching his breath, Tom's mind was not on himself. He looked around to make sure everyone else was safe. The employees who had been rescued were hugging each other, thankful to be alive. The crowd outside continued to watch, and whispers of admiration spread quickly. People were amazed by the courage of a man who had nothing in terms of wealth, but had everything in heart. Tom's colleagues gave him water and checked his pulse. "You did well, Tom," one said with a smile. "You saved lives today." Tom smiled weakly in return. He was tired, sore, and covered in soot, but he felt proud. This was what mattered most: helping others, being brave when it counted, and doing what was right. As the fire trucks prepared to leave, Tom looked back at the building. Smoke still rose from the upper floors, but the worst was over. The firemen had done their job and no one else had been hurt. The sun was setting now, casting an orange glow across the city. Tom knew that tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, and probably more struggles in life. But he also knew that today he had made a difference, and for Tom that was enough. Tom could feel the heat of the fire still on his skin, even as he caught his breath outside. The crowd cheered, but he barely noticed them. His focus was on the people who were still inside, and the firefighters who were working tirelessly to contain the flames. His heart was racing, but he knew he could not stop yet. Someone was still in danger, and Tom had always believed that every life mattered. Once the paramedics checked Mr. Benson and the other rescued employees, Tom turned back toward the building. His team had begun assessing the damage inside, but the fire was unpredictable. Smoke curled through the hallways, hiding the walls and making it hard to see. Tom's senses were heightened. He could hear every crackle of the fire, every shout from his colleagues, and every cough from someone trapped inside. The building groaned under the heat, and falling debris reminded him that time was critical. "Tom, we need you on the 3rd floor," a fellow firefighter shouted. The voice came from a young fireman named Alan, who had joined the team recently. Alan pointed toward a stairwell where smoke was pouring out. "There are still people trapped there. They cannot move on their own." Tom nodded without hesitation. He grabbed his helmet and mask and ran toward the stairs. Each step was heavy and the air was thick with smoke, but he kept moving. His training kicked in automatically. He thought about the people waiting outside for news, about the families who would be worried, and about the children who might never see their parents if he did not act quickly. On the 3rd floor, Tom found 2 employees huddled together in a small office. They were coughing and covering their faces, terrified by the fire around them. Tom quickly handed them oxygen masks and spoke to them in a calm, steady voice. "Follow me. I will get you out safely. Stay close and keep moving." The employees nodded, trembling but trusting Tom. He guided them toward the hallway, checking for obstacles and fallen furniture. The smoke was thick and it burned their eyes, but Tom's calm words gave them courage. "We are almost there. One step at a time. You can do this," he encouraged them as they moved slowly but steadily. Suddenly, a section of the ceiling cracked, sending dust and small pieces of plaster falling toward them. Tom acted quickly. He shielded the employees with his body, protecting them from harm. His training had prepared him for moments like this, but nothing could fully prepare him for the reality of the fire. Every movement required careful judgment and every second mattered. As they continued down the stairwell, Tom noticed another figure struggling further down. It was a young intern named Sam, who had stayed behind to retrieve some files. Sam was coughing violently and could barely move. Tom rushed to his side. "I am here. You are safe now. Take my arm and hold on tight," he said. Sam grabbed his arm and together they moved toward the exit. The flames from a nearby office reached the stairwell, sending waves of heat around them. Tom's jacket was already singed at the edges and the smoke made it hard to breathe, but he did not stop. He encouraged Sam and the 2 employees to keep moving, reminding them that the sunlight at the end of the stairwell meant safety. By the time they reached the ground floor, other firefighters had already started guiding people outside. Tom led Sam and the 2 employees to the safety of the street where the crowd waited. Paramedics rushed over to help, checking their condition and giving them water. Tom took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, but he knew that his work was not finished. He looked back at the building, still glowing with heat, and knew that more people could still be trapped. The fire was spreading quickly to the upper floors, and the heat was becoming more intense. Tom's mind raced. He remembered the security guard's words. The CEO was still inside on the top floor. Mr. Benson had already been rescued, but what about anyone else who might be trapped? Tom could not ignore the possibility. He checked his gear again, making sure his mask and helmet were secure, and ran back toward the stairwell. On the way up, he passed other firefighters carrying hoses and breaking down doors. Some were guiding employees who had gotten lost in the smoke. Tom noticed a woman struggling to carry a small child. He stopped for a moment and offered his help. "Let me carry the child." "You lead the way," he said. The woman nodded gratefully and handed him the child. Tom held the child close, protecting him from the smoke as he moved quickly toward safety. After setting the child down with paramedics, Tom continued his ascent. Every step was heavier than the last. His arms burned from carrying equipment and his legs ached from climbing the stairs, but he refused to give up. He reminded himself that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. Each person he saved made the effort worthwhile. When he reached the top floor again, the scene was chaotic. Papers were scattered across the office and the smell of smoke filled the air. Tom looked carefully, calling out, "Is anyone here? Please respond if you can hear me." A faint voice answered. He followed the sound and found another employee trapped behind a fallen desk. She was scared but not injured. "Don't worry, I am here to help. Hold my hand and we will get you out," Tom said. He lifted the desk with all his strength and guided her to the stairwell. The fire crackled around them, but Tom's focus never wavered. He knew that panic could make the situation worse, so he spoke in calm, confident tones. "We are almost there. Stay close to me. Keep breathing slowly. You will be safe." As they moved down the stairs, a sudden burst of flames blocked part of the hallway. Tom had to think quickly. He found an alternate route through a side door that led to a smaller stairwell. It was narrow, but it gave them a chance to escape. He led the employee down step by step, careful not to trip on debris. Each movement was precise, each step deliberate. Finally, they reached the ground floor. Sunlight streamed through the open doors, and the cool air was a welcome relief. Tom guided the employee outside, where paramedics checked her condition. She smiled weakly at him, her eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. Tom nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and pride. As the fire truck sprayed water to control the flames, Tom realized that the rescue was not over yet. He could still see smoke rising from parts of the building, and he knew that there might be more people needing help. But for now, he allowed himself a brief pause. He drank some water and looked around at his colleagues. Everyone was working together, supporting each other and making sure no one was left behind. Tom's thoughts returned to the people outside who had watched the rescue. Cameras had been set up by news crews, capturing every moment. The images of him carrying the child, guiding employees, and facing the fire would soon be seen by many. But Tom did not think about fame or recognition. He thought about the people he had saved and the lives that were still precious and worth protecting. Even as the flames continued to burn inside the building, Tom felt a sense of calm determination. He knew that courage, teamwork, and quick thinking could make the difference between life and loss. Every step he took, every action he made was focused on one goal: saving as many people as possible. By the end of the day, most employees had been rescued. Tom's body ached, his clothes were dirty and burned in places, and his breathing was heavy. But the sense of fulfillment was stronger than the exhaustion. He had faced danger, helped others, and made a difference. The fire would be remembered, but so would the bravery of the firemen, especially Tom, whose heart and courage had shone brighter than the flames. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the town, Tom finally allowed himself to rest. He leaned against a fire truck, listening to the sounds of the crowd outside and the hissing of the water on the building. The rescue had been successful and lives had been saved. But he knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fires, and new chances to help. And Tom would be ready. The sun had begun to dip below the skyline, painting the city in shades of orange and pink. The fire in the high-rise building had been mostly contained, and the firefighters were working to put out the last remaining flames. The crowd that had gathered earlier was still on the streets, whispering and pointing toward the building. Many held phones and cameras, capturing the moments they would not forget. Among them, some parents held their children tightly, pointing out the brave firemen who had risked their lives. Tom stood near one of the fire trucks, leaning slightly against the metal for support. His breathing was heavy and sweat streamed down his face. Every muscle in his body ached from climbing stairs, lifting debris and guiding people to safety. Despite the exhaustion, a sense of pride warmed his chest. He had saved lives today. He had done what mattered most. His colleagues approached him with water bottles and first aid kits. Alan, the young firefighter who had been helping him, handed him a bottle. "You need this more than anyone else," Alan said, smiling faintly despite the smoke and chaos around them. Tom took the bottle with shaky hands, drinking slowly to replenish his strength. The water felt cool, and for a moment he closed his eyes, savoring the small comfort. "Are you okay?" one of the paramedics asked, checking Tom's pulse and looking at his pale face. "You've been through a lot," she added gently. Tom nodded, though he could barely speak. His throat was dry and his legs felt like lead. "I'm fine," he said quietly. "I just need a moment." Just as he took a deep breath, the dizziness hit him. His vision blurred and he felt a sudden weakness in his knees. Before anyone could react, Tom collapsed onto the pavement. The crowd gasped and several firefighters rushed to his side. They quickly helped him lie down, supporting his head and shoulders. "Tom, are you okay?" Alan asked, concern clear in his voice. Tom tried to respond, but his words came out faint. His body was exhausted and his mind struggled to focus. The paramedics worked quickly, checking his vital signs and giving him oxygen. "He's dehydrated and overexerted," one said. "Nothing serious, but he needs to rest." As Tom lay there, his thoughts wandered. He thought about the people he had helped, the small victories in the chaos and the gratitude in their eyes. He remembered guiding the employees down the stairs, carrying the child safely and shielding people from falling debris. Even as his body ached, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had risked everything and it had been worth it. The crowd continued to watch, some whispering, some taking photos, and some just staring in awe. Children pointed toward him, their eyes wide with admiration. Neighbors and passers-by who had gathered on the sidewalks clapped quietly, moved by the bravery they had witnessed. Even though Tom had never sought recognition, the appreciation of the people around him filled him with warmth. Mr. Benson, the CEO who had been rescued earlier, noticed Tom lying on the pavement. His face showed concern as he hurried over, guided by his assistant. When he reached Tom, he knelt down and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You saved my life," he said sincerely. "I cannot thank you enough." Tom managed a weak smile, his lips barely moving. "Just doing my job," he whispered. His eyes closed briefly as another wave of exhaustion passed over him. Mr. Benson looked around and saw the paramedics attending to him. "Take care of him. He deserves it," Mr. Benson instructed. The paramedics nodded and continued their work, giving Tom fluids and monitoring his condition. While Tom rested, the firemen continued their work inside the building. They were careful to ensure that no one else was trapped, checking each floor and clearing debris. Smoke still rose from parts of the building, but the main danger had passed. The crowd outside remained patient, understanding that the firemen had saved countless lives and that the exhausted Tom deserved a moment of care. Even as Tom lay there, people began to talk about what they had seen. Conversations spread through the crowd, with neighbors and strangers alike praising his bravery. "Did you see him carry that child down the stairs?" one woman asked. "He didn't even stop once," another added. The stories grew, each one highlighting a small act of courage, showing how much Tom had given of himself in those moments. News cameras, which had been filming the rescue, focused on him. The images of a fireman exhausted and pale, yet surrounded by the gratitude of the people he saved, captured the hearts of everyone watching. Reporters began to tell his story, emphasizing the courage of a man who had no wealth but had given everything in the service of others. Tom's mother arrived at the scene as well, her face full of worry. She ran toward him, tears in her eyes. "Tom, are you okay?" she asked, kneeling beside him. Tom reached out and held her hand, feeling a wave of relief. "I'm okay, Mom," he said softly. "Everyone is safe." She hugged him gently, her heart full of pride and concern. "You are so brave, Tom. You risked your life for others, and now look at you. We need to get you home and rest properly." Tom nodded, grateful for her presence. He had faced danger, but having his mother near made the exhaustion feel a little lighter. Meanwhile, Mr. Benson stood nearby, watching everything unfold. He was moved not just by the rescue, but by the humility of the firemen who had risked so much. He realized that Tom's actions deserved more than words. "I have to do something," Mr. Benson thought. "The world should know about this man." People in the crowd began to leave, sharing videos and photos on their phones. Social media buzzed with stories of the fireman who had saved lives despite being exhausted and struggling in his own life. Comments poured in, praising his bravery, kindness, and dedication. The story quickly went viral, spreading across the town and beyond. Paramedics helped Tom sit up slowly and guided him to an ambulance. He leaned back, exhausted but satisfied. The town had witnessed the selflessness of a man who had nothing to give but his courage, and that courage had saved lives. The cameras continued to film as he was assisted into the ambulance, capturing every detail for the world to see. As the ambulance doors closed, Tom thought about the future. He had always worried about money, about paying bills, and about living a simple life in a small apartment. But now, he realized that courage, kindness, and dedication were more valuable than any amount of money. Today, he had made a difference, and that was a treasure no one could take away. Even in his exhaustion, Tom felt proud. He had faced one of the most dangerous situations of his life, yet he had acted with calm, determination, and compassion. The people he saved would remember him. The town would remember him, and perhaps the world would remember him too. For now, he allowed himself to rest, knowing that he had fulfilled his duty as a fireman and as a human being who cared deeply about others. The morning after the media coverage, Tom woke up feeling a mixture of exhaustion and hope. The events of the fire, the rescue, and the attention he had received were still fresh in his mind. He looked around his small apartment and realized that life had not changed yet in his home, but something had shifted within him. He felt appreciated, recognized, and, most importantly, proud of the choices he had made. Tom's phone buzzed constantly with messages from neighbors, friends, and even strangers. Everyone wanted to congratulate him and express their gratitude. Some messages came from children who had watched the news and were inspired by his bravery. One message in particular made him smile. A local school had invited him to speak to the students about courage, responsibility, and helping others. Tom had never imagined that his simple acts of helping people could inspire so many. Later that day, Tom received another call from Mr. Benson. "Tom, I want you to come to my office. I have something important to discuss with you," Mr. Benson said. Tom felt nervous but excited. He quickly prepared and left for the company building. As he walked through the doors, he was greeted warmly by Mr. Benson and several of his colleagues. The atmosphere was friendly and respectful, a clear reflection of the gratitude they felt for Tom. "Tom, what you did for me and my employees was extraordinary," Mr. Benson began. "I have been thinking about how we can support you and your family. You have shown courage, kindness, and integrity in a way that inspires everyone around you. We want to offer you an opportunity to improve your life and continue making a difference." Tom listened carefully, his heart beating faster. Mr. Benson explained that he wanted to provide financial support for Tom and his mother, ensure that they had a safe and comfortable home, and give Tom a special role with the company's safety and emergency programs. "This is not charity," Mr. Benson said. "This is recognition for the incredible work you have done and the example you have set." Tom felt a mix of emotions, gratitude, pride, and even disbelief. He had never asked for anything, and yet someone recognized the value of his actions in such a meaningful way. "I don't know what to say," Tom replied softly. "I only did what I thought was right. I never expected anything in return." "That is exactly why this matters so much," Mr. Benson said with a smile. "Your humility and dedication are rare. We want to make sure your future is brighter and that your courage is remembered and appreciated." In the weeks that followed, Tom's life began to change. With Mr. Benson's support, he was able to move his mother into a nicer apartment where they had more space, better facilities, and a sense of comfort they had not experienced before. Tom also received new equipment and training at the fire station, allowing him to work more efficiently and safely. His confidence grew, not only because of the attention and support, but because he realized that his efforts truly made a difference. The community continued to celebrate Tom's bravery. Schools invited him to speak about courage and helping others, inspiring children to be kind, responsible, and brave in their own ways. Local businesses recognized him publicly, and neighbors often stopped him on the street to express their admiration. Tom remained humble through it all. He always said that anyone could have done what he did, but people could see that he had gone above and beyond. Tom also used his newfound recognition to help others. He worked with local organizations to support people in need, volunteering time and resources to make a positive impact. His story became more than a tale of a single fire. It became a message about courage, kindness, and community. People admired him not just for saving lives, but for his character and willingness to continue helping others, even when he could have taken a quieter path. One afternoon, as he returned from a school visit, Tom noticed children playing near the fire station. They waved at him excitedly, some carrying drawings of firemen and children holding hands. Tom waved back, feeling a deep sense of happiness. He realized that his actions had not only saved lives, but had inspired hope, courage, and kindness in the hearts of many. Even his mother noticed a difference. She smiled as she watched Tom interact with the children in the community. "You have always been brave, Tom," she said one evening. "Now the world sees it too. You have made life better for so many people, including us. I am proud of you." Tom hugged her tightly, feeling the warmth of love and support that had carried him through the toughest moments of his life. Mr. Benson continued to check in on him, offering guidance and encouragement. He made sure that Tom had opportunities to grow professionally and personally. The fireman who had once struggled to pay bills now had stability, support, and a platform to inspire others. But despite all the changes, Tom remained grounded. He never forgot the people he had helped, the lessons he had learned, and the importance of courage and kindness in everyday life. As the days passed, Tom found joy in simple moments. He helped train new firefighters, assisted in community programs, and spent time with his mother. He also found time to reflect on the fire, the rescue, and the gratitude he had received. He realized that heroism was not about recognition or reward. It was about making the right choices, helping others, and facing challenges with determination and compassion. One evening, after a long day of community activities and work at the fire station, Tom sat quietly in his apartment. The sunset filled the room with warm light, and he thought about the journey he had been on. From struggling to pay rent to being recognized by the town, the media, and Mr. Benson, life had changed in ways he had never imagined. Yet the most important change was within himself, the confidence, pride, and satisfaction that came from knowing he had made a difference. Tom smiled as he looked out the window. He knew that the world would continue to present challenges, fires to fight, and people to help. But he also knew that he was ready. He had courage, determination, and a heart that would never give up. The town, the community, and even strangers had seen what he could do, and their admiration reminded him that acts of kindness and bravery never go unnoticed. In the weeks and months that followed, Tom's story continued to inspire people. Local newspapers, social media, and community programs highlighted his courage and humility. Children learned from his example, neighbors shared his story, and other firemen looked up to him as a role model. Tom's life had transformed not because of money or fame, but because his actions had shown the power of courage, kindness, and determination. Through it all, Tom remained the same humble fireman he had always been. He continued to serve the community with dedication, inspired by the gratitude and hope he had sparked in others. His life was no longer just about surviving. It was about making a meaningful impact, helping others, and being a source of inspiration and encouragement for everyone around him. And so, as the city lights twinkled in the night and the fire station stood quietly in the distance, Tom looked forward to the future with hope and confidence. He knew that challenges would come, but he also knew that courage, kindness, and determination could overcome any obstacle. He had saved lives, inspired hearts, and created a new beginning not only for himself, but for everyone whose life he had touched. In the end, Tom realized that true heroism was not about recognition or reward. It was about making the right choices, showing courage when it mattered most, and helping others even when life was hard. And for Tom, that was a life well lived, a heart full of pride, and a legacy that would continue to inspire generations to come.